Good afternoon. Today, I want to begin with something very ordinary. It's for everybody, not for the politicians, not for the central banks. This is for everybody in the street. So to this end, what we did was we took a cross-border analysis of Aldi and Lidl basket across Europe. This is very basic, let me tell you. So we take a standard €100 Aldi or Lidl shop in May 2025. The fair working estimate is that the same basket in 2026 now feels closer to 103 to 106 right across Europe. Of course, that's not a perfect till-by-till audit. Aldi and Lidl priced locally in Germany, Ireland, France, Spain, Italy, Poland, Netherlands and the UK all have different costs, tax systems, wage pressures, rents, transport costs and shopping habits. But the model gives us something useful. It shows how inflation is actually felt by households. Official inflation figures may tell us that food inflation is more controlled than it was during the worst of the cost of living period. But families do not experience inflation as an average number. They experience it through bread, milk, eggs, chicken, mince, coffee, fruit, chocolate, cleaning goods, and the items that go into the trolley every week that nobody puts on their list. So across Europe, Aldi and Lidl are still doing an important job for some people, for everybody actually. They are protecting the household basket better than many full-service supermarkets. Their own brand model, simpler shop format and very strong price competition helps to keep the pressure down. In Germany, which is the heartland of discount competition, one may see a €100 basket move to perhaps 101.50 to 104, whereas Ireland, France, Spain, Portugal is closer to 102 to 106. Italy, Belgium and the Netherlands and parts of Central Europe may feel somewhat higher, perhaps 103 to 108, depending on the mix of meat, imported products and fresh food. Of course, if we're taking the UK, we are talking about sterling. But the same principle applies. €100 Aldi or Lidl basket in May 2025 may now feel closer to 104 to 108 sterling in May 2026. The key point is, inflation prices may have eased, but the weekly shop is still dearer than families would like. The pressure is moved from being a dramatic shock into a quieter, regular irrigation. It is not always enough to cause alarm, but it is enough to make households careful. And that brings us to the markets today. Okay, so we're into today. As Europe and UK move through the early afternoon, the handover from Asia, Australasia, India and Middle East has been cautious rather than confident. Asia closed weaker, led by the pressure in technology and AI-linked shares. Investors are still absorbing the recent Wall Street weakness and the stronger US jobs picture, which has brought back the concern that the Federal Reserve may keep interest rates higher for longer. India has also moved through its late recession in a watchful mood, while Australasia has taken its lead from the weaker Asian tone. In the Gulf and wider Middle East, investors remain cautious because oil prices and regional tensions are again part of the financial calculation. While even at lunchtime today, there was a drone attack, so it's not a predictable event. Europe and the UK are not in panic mode, but they are defensive. The main European indices are being softer, with technology shares under pressure and airline and travel names affected by higher oil prices. London, Dublin, Frankfurt, Paris, Milan are all watching three issues very carefully this week. US inflation data, the European Central Bank interest rate decision, and whether Wall Street can stabilise after recent technology sector wobble. I'd refer you to the article I did last night on markets and the geopolitical position for the coming week. Now, New York is open for the week. The Wall Street performance this afternoon matters greatly. If the US market steadies, Asia may receive a calmer handover into Tuesday. But if the technology sell-off deepens, the nervousness may spread further across the global market chain. There is also the geopolitical layer, which we cannot ignore. Iran and Israel remain a market risk. Gaza remains unresolved. Ukraine remains dangerous. Russia continues to test Western patience. None of these issues sit neatly outside the economy. They feed into oil, shipping confidence, defence spending, inflation expectations, and wider mood of investors. So, today's story is really about two baskets. The first is the household basket, the Aldi shop that tells us how ordinary families feel inflation. The second is the market basket, equities, bonds, oil, currencies, and technology shares, which tell us how investors are pricing the risk of the week ahead. Both baskets are saying the same thing in different ways. The crisis has not returned in full force, but caution is back. Households are still watching the till receipt. Investors are watching the central banks. Businesses are watching energy costs, borrowing costs, and the consumer. For family offices, private investors and business owners, this is not a week for panic, but is a week for discipline. Watch liquidity, watch currency exposure, watch energy-sensitive sectors, watch technology valuations, and above all, watch how the ordinary consumer behaves, because the consumer often tells us more about the market than anybody else. This has been an EU Family Market and Economic Note, looking east from Ireland and following the handover from Asia into Europe, London and New York. This podcast is general commentary and information only. It is not investment, legal, tax or planning advice. Listeners should take professional advice from properly registered and regulated advisors within their own region before taking any investment, financial, legal or tax decisions. Thank you for listening, and note that we'll be back again tomorrow. Take care. Thank you.